You learn to fear your emotions. I like to distill learning down to 3 different ways we learn: by being taught directly, we learn by observing, and we learn by our own personal experience. Aside from cultural messages you picked up along the way from your teachers, extended family, clergy, neighborhoods, media, celebrities, books, politicians, and the medical world, most of what you believe about emotions comes from your parents or primary caregivers. The long list I just gave would be those you observe or are indirectly taught by, meaning things that you pick up and you hear in advertisements, etc. Your parents and your school teachers are people that directly taught you things. Your parents and or caretakers that you had in your very young years taught you to fear emotions. Your first lesson came from observing how people closest to you handled their emotions. In many families, emotions are never discussed. I know in my personal experience, I lost my mother when I was 21 years old, and the rest of my family, both immediate and extended, went on with life as usual, and to this day, don't really talk about her. I'm very into understanding and expressing feelings, so it was a really strange and difficult time for me and my life. Processing emotions had already come to the surface as a need and desire, and a part of me that I wanted to learn more about. Meanwhile, feelings were wrong and should not be expressed to everyone in my immediate circle. Many of you associate strong emotions with fighting or even physical harm, confusing feeling angry with behaving angrily. You may have had a parent whose feelings constantly overflowed and burdened, frightened and embarrassed others, especially young you, when they unloaded. Maybe you wanted to clap your hands over your ears and hide in a corner whenever they let loose. Somewhere along the way, you then made an unconscious decision to never lose control of your emotions and embarrass yourself or scare others in this way. If you were raised in a family where your parents constantly argued, any level of conflict might frighten you now. Although you're safe as an adult because you're no longer dependent on your battling parents, the fragile child inside still withdraws or becomes paralyzed around interpersonal tension and conflict. Your household may also have appeared healthy and normal, but you were frequently scolded for expressing unhappiness or encouraged to always look at the bright side. If you were told to stop crying or fussing, be a good girl or good boy, not make such a huge deal out of things, quit being such a baby, it impacted your emotional expression as life continues. If your parents insisted that you had to be sunshine, the message you received was that negative emotions were wrong and that you better keep a lid on them if you want to get along or, unfortunately, be loved by others. You became an expert of what psychology calls acting as if, by enclosing your authentic self in a public shell designed to please the crowd. In families where your caregivers could say whatever they pleased, but jumped down your throat every time you piped up, you were given a double message. It's okay for other people to express their emotions, but you are not allowed to express yours. If your parents gave you the silent treatment whenever you displayed irritation or sadness, you might believe that your anger or grief always leads to rejection, abandonment, and withdrawal of love. Invalidating comments like, "Of course you don't feel like that," or "You shouldn't feel that way," might cause you to doubt and mistrust your inner voice. If you were told repeatedly by someone in authority that you did not feel what you knew you felt, you probably ended up a very confused little boy or little girl. Until the message was revised somewhere along the way, you may have grown up into and still be a very confused man or woman. If you watched a parent that you knew was unhappy pretend to be happy, you might not have known what to think. Do you believe what your parent says or your gut intuition? You receive training in everything from driving a car to take SATs, but nowhere are you formally schooled on how to handle emotions.